Two groups of people in Ireland are paying a cost they did not earn. One group is being labeled, the other group is being attacked. The people deciding how this is framed are paying nothing. This is how it works.
In June 2025, riots broke out in Ballymena after an alleged sexual assault. Politicians and police called the riots racist. Some of what happened was racist. Filipino families had to put stickers on their doors saying, "Filipino household," so they would not be attacked. 2/3 of the town's Roma population fled. But the Filipino families had nothing to do with the original alleged assault. The Roma families had nothing to do with it. They were targeted because of how they looked. In November 2025, the charges in the original case were dropped. The prosecution said the test for prosecution was no longer met. That news did not get the same coverage as the original allegation.
Most people in Ireland never heard the second part.
Watch what happened to the language. People protested about specific things. Documentation, verification, housing pressure, lack of consultation, specific concerns. The media reported it as protests about migration. The word illegal dropped out. The word specific dropped out. Now everyone discussing the protest was discussing migration generally.
Legal migrants, settled communities, people who had been here for years. Then the protests were called racist. People who started with specific concerns were now being told they were racist for raising them. People who were not paying attention were now being told that this was a racial conflict in their country. By the time it was visible enough to film, it actually was about race.
Even though the trigger was not. Here is what most coverage will not show you. A homeless Irish man stood in a queue. Beside him was a girl who had just arrived from Africa. She was given a house immediately. He had been homeless for years. He asked a question, "Why does she get house before me?" The answer he was given was, "She has nowhere else to go." His reply was, "If I had somewhere else to go, I would not be homeless." He was asking for equality. He was called a racist. He left that conversation with a label he did not arrive with. This is the mechanism. People who are not racial in their thinking are taught by the framing that this is a racial conflict. Some of them then make it one. The system houses two groups of people unequally. The question about why is treated as bigotry. The state never has to answer the question.
Public representatives have written that racist violence follows anti-refugee protests as a general claim about Irish protesters. They have folded ordinary residents, including mothers raising specific concerns about their own communities, into a far-right category they did not join. When a public figure is harassed by people they identify as far-right, that is real. But when they then write that all subsequent protests are racist, they are taking their personal experience and applying it as a frame for an entire population. The mechanism that produces racism, categorizing people, treating the category as the whole of the person, permitting contempt toward the category, is the same mechanism being applied today to anyone caught in the far-right frame.
The Irish were treated this way in British media in the 19th century. Travelers have been treated this way in Irish media. The category is different now. The mechanism is the same. Watch what happens when the people raising concerns cannot be labeled by race. When Irish farmers protested, when working people blocked roads over fuel prices and the cost of living, the label racist was not available. So the political class reached for something else. They were called far-right. They were accused of blocking ambulances. They were framed as a threat to public order. People watching the news at home heard ambulances were being blocked and were horrified, but first-hand footage circulated showing ambulances being waved through, protesters moving aside. The blocking story was not what was happening on the ground. When that framing did not silence the protests, the state escalated. Soldiers were used in support of civilian operations.
Stop and think about what that means. Working-class Irish people raising concerns about being unable to afford fuel, unable to afford to keep their farms running, were met not with a conversation, not with an answer, with escalation. This is the same playbook as the migration framing, different label, same mechanism. Find a category, attach it to the protesters, refuse to address the underlying concern, escalate the response. The leaders did not need to do this. They could have gone to the farmers, they could have gone to the fuel protesters, they could have listened. Even if they disagreed, people would have felt heard. Instead, they hid behind the language. They hid behind the framing.
Ireland was once occupied by an army that hid in castles and looked down on the people. Watching the state respond this way to its own citizens was a reminder that the castle is still there. The flags have changed. The mechanism has not.
Watch who pays the cost. Watch who does not. Working-class Irish people pay the cost when their concerns are dismissed as bigotry. Black, Filipino, Roma, migrant families pay the cost when they are attacked for how they look. Farmers pay the cost when they are called extremists for protesting cost of living pressure. Platforms profit. Conflict drives engagement. Engagement is what platforms sell.
Politicians use the frame for cover. As long as the conversation is about whether protesters are racist or far-right, it is not about housing failure, IPAS contract transparency, identity verification, fuel prices, or community consultation. Communities are made to fight each other while the system that fails all of them carries on.
In 1847, during the famine, the Choctaw Nation sent money to starving Irish people. They had survived the Trail of Tears. They had nothing themselves. They sent what they had. In 1845, Frederick Douglass came to Ireland fresh from slavery in America. He wrote that for the first time in his life he was treated like a human being.
He said the Irish, despite their poverty, did not look at him as black. They looked at him as a man. The sculpture you see in Cork remembers the Choctaw gift. Irish people and black people have stood together before. We have been put at the bottom of the same systems. We have been told the same lies about each other to keep us from noticing we were both being used. The division you see today did not exist a generation ago. It has been built through media framing, through political language, through algorithms that reward outrage. It took years to build. It only took one day in Ballymena to set it on fire. I am not asking anyone to agree with me on every policy. I am asking Irish working-class people, black people in Ireland, migrant families, farmers, and everyone the framing has been used against to recognize something simple. We are being talked about by people who do not live next to any of us. We are being used as each other's enemies. We are stronger together than we are apart. The Choctaw remembered the Irish. Frederick Douglass remembered the Irish. The Irish have always known what it is to be called dirt by people in offices. Do not let them divide us again. Not on housing, not on services, not on the language they use about us. Talk to each other, not about each other.